Ooh, that was pretty hard to watch. I was actually there when it happened. The thing about protection sports, or really I would imagine any sort of working dog sport, whenever you engage in some sort of high impact activity, you're going to occasionally run into scenarios like this. Now, all that is just part of the game. It's a contact sport. Every once in a while, not often, and it shouldn't be often, but every once in a while, you're going to have little mishaps like that, tiny ones. That occasionally, yes, a dog is going to take a tumble like this. Occasionally, a decoy is going to take a tumble. That's actually more frequent, right? Depending on the type of dogs that you're working. Some dogs are incredibly fast, and you're going to hit the ground every once in a while. The part of protection sports that sometimes looks really cool, but at the same time, it's not the coolest thing, is when things like this happen, right? You don't want to see your dog take a tumble like that. You don't want to see your dog have a bad session where now you're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to check him. I'm going to have to make sure he's not injured. This has happened to me at trials. It happens. This has happened to me in training sessions where there was some mild miscommunication, and now the dog ends up, having a very, very, very hard repetition where they hit the ground wrong, or they just get jammed a little bit too much. And that happens, right? This is not the fun part of protection sports. Now, we care about our dogs. We care about, we love our dogs, right? At least we like our dogs. Some people might not love their dogs, but at least we like our dogs. We like what we're doing. And I would imagine that most of us don't want to see that happen to our dog. If you're really enjoying this episode and you enjoy other episodes similar to this, hit the like button, share this episode, and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out tremendously. The other thing that we don't like to see, especially if you are the decoy, is as a decoy, you don't want to get hurt. Yes, watching the decoy from the sidelines take a tumble, sometimes you'll laugh, sometimes you'll gasp, and it's definitely not the same effect as when it happens to you. Personally, I gasp a little bit more when it happens to somebody else. I'm more concerned when it happens to somebody else. Yes, every once in a while, it doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while I'll catch a dog where after that catch, I'm a little bit sore, like the dog caught me just right, or maybe I landed, my ankle just kind of twisted just right, my knee just kind of twisted just right, and every once in a while, things like that happen, and it doesn't feel good. But when it happens to somebody else and you're on the sidelines, I think people are in two categories. You either feel terrible for the decoy, you gasp, and you go, oh my God, I hope that guy's okay. Or there are other people that just laugh, right? But in either case, it's not something that we look forward to. We don't want that to happen. Like if I have a dog that is really fast and it takes the decoy down, I don't want to see that. I don't take pride. And my dog Rust was incredibly fast, and he was known for doing that. He was known for, during training sessions, he hit so hard that it wasn't uncommon for decoys to fall. Even at trials, this has happened. The reason I don't like that, the reason I don't get a grin on my face, I don't go, oh my God, that's my dog, is because every time your dog falls, every time your dog takes a decoy down, there is a higher risk of injury. Because, our dogs, when they bite and they take the decoy down, our dogs don't let go. They're still latched on. So as they're latched on and the decoy falls on top of the dog, well, that dog is so committed, they're not going to let go. So if their bodies land in this direction and their head or their neck lands on this direction, we know they're not going to let go. And so now you have potential for injury. It looks cool sometimes, and people get like a big rise out of it when they see a decoy get taken down by a dog. But trust me, you don't want to see that. It's the last thing I want to see. So I make sure that my helpers, if they're going to catch a dog that is really fast, whether it's my dog or one of my other club members or a client's dog, is I make sure that the helper knows, that they really know this. I'm talking about training, not trials. But in training, I want to make sure that the helper really knows this dog is really fast. I want to make sure that the helper knows how to catch the dog. So if I have a decoy, if I have a helper that is not as experienced, I'm not going to put him on a dog that is really fast, because two things: I don't want that decoy to have a bad fall. I don't want to give the decoy a bad experience. And certainly I don't want the dog to have a potential for injury if the decoy falls on top of the dog. Now, there is this saying, you know, that if you fall, you catch the dog and you fall, that you don't fall on top of the dog. That certainly is easier said than done. It happens so fast that unless you've done it a handful of times, if you've never fallen at a moment's notice, it's very hard to control your body, to control where you're going to land, particularly when all of that momentum of this dog going at over 20 miles an hour suddenly hits you. It's very difficult to make that decision between here, you know, and the ground. It takes practice, and it takes experience, and it takes you having fallen already a handful of times for you to know, okay, this is how I don't fall on top of the dog. So it's not something we like to see. It's not something that we get a rise out of. It's not something that we laugh about. There are videos on the internet of police dogs taking decoys down. They're running. I mean, everybody's tumbling, and people are like, oh my God, that video is so badass. And all I see, oh my God, that could be a serious injury for somebody, right? Particularly the dog. We don't want that to happen. But in reality, like I said, protection sports, and I say protection sports because this is where we do the most sense. So we're doing very long sense. So the dog is running for a very decent amount of distance. And depending on the sport, right? The sport could be one of the ring sports, it could be French ring, where the decoy is trying to escape the dog, basically trying to get the dog to miss. Well, if you try to get the dog to miss and the dog doesn't miss, this could be where where a lot of decoys will fall in French ring, right? So in PSA, you have the dog charging at the decoy, and you have the decoy full sprint charging at the dog. So when you have that full sprint from both ends, there has to be this nice transition for it to be smooth, so everybody goes home safely. And so these things can contribute to sessions where one of the parties, so the decoy or the dog, has a little bit of a sore afternoon or evening post-training session. So this is why I said sport protection, sport training can be more likely where you're going to see this. In personal protection training, it's very unlikely you're going to see this, because in personal protection training, you're training the dog to stay around you, right? You're not going to send your dog down 80 yards, 50 yards, 100 yards downfield to catch the bad guy. You're not going to do that. You're not doing events like that. In protection training, the dog is with you, so there should be very little need, if any, for you to send your dog, any more than maybe 10 feet. So obviously there are scenarios here and there. Somebody might think, well, no, there's this scenario. Look, there might be scenarios here and there where you might do a send, but it's not going to be to the extent that protection sports will require your dog to do. Also, police dog training, this is another one. Police dog training, there's going to be a lot of sends. Police dogs also get injured during these deployments, right? During training sessions, sometimes that happens. It happens also during actual apprehensions, which is why it's not uncommon for police dogs to sometimes have titanium teeth, right? There'll be a canine that is a crown that is not their actual canine. So this sometimes does happen because in actual scenarios for police dogs, the bad guy, the person getting bit, is not a compliant helper. The situations, the conditions are not ideal, and sometimes the dog is leaping landing on the wrong spots and committing to the job, doing the job, but the dog is also more likely to encounter a high impact scenario that could lead to a minor and sometimes major injury in police dog applications or patrol applications, similar to protection sports. Okay, so there is a lot of sending, there's a lot of high speed, there's a lot of flea bites, there's just stuff like the stuff that you would not do with your personal protection dog. So these things do happen. I just wanted to let you know, if you are new to protection sports, you have to be aware of that, because sometimes people are not aware of that. They just go into it thinking everything's going to be fine always, but it doesn't happen that way, which is why personally I feel strongly about the fact that if you do protection sports, you should definitely have insurance for your dog. Okay, to me, it's a must. It just makes no sense to me why you would do an activity that does have a propensity for high impact scenarios that could lead to an injury, and not have some sort of plan to address some of these minor injuries. Okay, now a lot of people that I work with have insurance on their dogs. It's something I recommend to my club members and to some of my clients that do sports, because sometimes it happens. You have some sort of injury, maybe a broken tooth. That's happened to one of my dogs. My other dog, Russ, that one that's really fast, he's retired now. He's had an injury that almost cost him an early retirement. But being able to pay for these very expensive treatments and have the insurance to cover that has been tremendously beneficial, because they're not pets. They're not just hanging out around your house and then playing fetch a couple of times a day. These dogs are freaking going as fast as they can. They're going with heart and soul, and they're actually they're there to give 1,000% of their physical stamina into that activity. That will lead to some possible chances of minor to sometimes major injury. So for that reason, it makes no sense to me why you wouldn't have some sort of plan to help your dog recover should that happen. Now, if you can dish out $5,000 at the drop of a hat, then that's definitely not a problem. You probably don't need the insurance. And if you're in that position, that's great. But the fact is, a lot of people in sports are actually not in that position. So, which is why, again, I strongly recommend that you have insurance for your dog. The one thing that I see, and I see this frequently enough to really drive this point home, is sometimes I see competitors that are training for high levels in a particular sport, and due to training, because it happens, sometimes it's not neglect, it's not negligence, it happens. Okay, I've had this happen under the best conditions. Just a dog slips and they fall the wrong way. Nothing major, nothing that looks major, but the injury could be very long lasting. So what I sometimes see is, sometimes I see competitors where this happens to them, and then they have to basically they start a GoFundMe, right? They start a GoFundMe, and now they're sharing it, and now you're asking for money from strangers. And look, if that's something you feel comfortable doing, absolutely do that. That's perfectly fine. Don't judge. Do whatever you want. But you're now leaving your dog's well-being at the mercy of people sending you like a couple of dollars here and there for you to make up that amount. So if the procedure is a $3,000 procedure to take care of your dog because of an injury that happened on an event or on a training session that you chose to participate in, knowing that it is high impact contact sport, and now you're like, hey, Fido, you're gonna have to wait till we have enough money to cover these vet bills. It doesn't make sense, right? One, it could take too long to get that money. Okay, two, you're kind of a, and if any of you have done this, don't take it as me judging you for this, but you have to be responsible for your animal. And yes, sometimes the shit hits the fan and you do everything you can, and sometimes people are down on their luck. I completely understand that too. But you don't want to, put this burden, this financial burden on other people. It's not that expensive, guys. It's not that expensive to get pet insurance. Okay, there are good companies out there. I've had one for years, and it's more than paid for itself. I've had when you have Malinois, they're kind of prone to have accidents. They're very they're, even though they're very athletic and very tough, because of how much intensity they put into everything, it's not uncommon for them to twist something, for them to break something, even if it's like a hairline fracture or a broken tooth. These things do happen when you have working dogs, especially when you have a Malinois. That's been my experience. And having that insurance has helped tremendously. Okay, and I could, if I wanted to, I could dish out, a few $1,000, $5,000 if I needed to at a moment's notice. But it's been very beneficial to have that to help me with these costs. Now, the way that it works, yes, with the pet insurance, you do have to pay your vet, and then you get the reimbursement, right? You file a claim, you get the reimbursement. To my knowledge, this is how most of the insurance companies work, for pet insurance at least. Now, if there is a different system that another company uses, then yes, definitely worth looking into. But again, going back to high impact sports, you need to be aware that it happens, and you need to have a plan for in case that does happen.